You're good.
All right. I'm looking for the watch party. I know we're live, so people can hear me singing. There we go. Watch party.
I'll wait for it to pop up.
Yep. Okay. Here we go. Well, welcome to West Virginia Ed Talks, our inaugural session. My banner's like right there in my face. I'm gonna go right here. Thank you, Sarah. So I want to introduce you to two people that probably don't need any introduction. We have Delegate Danielle Walker. Yay!
Hi, guys. Good evening, everyone.
I'm looking for shares.
Great. I need to mute one of my speakers. Trying to figure out how. And then I have, hopefully, a delegate in the next session, Anna Lewis, over there in Cabell County.
Yay! Hi. Hopefully.
Hear me. Hold on. All right. So, welcome. So, how are you all? How have you been coping with this latest pandemic?
Full on emotional fetal position. Mostly.
I am still standing and doing my best that I can to serve my community and my district and my county and my state. So that means late nights was my thing, but I think I have a lot more sleepless nights of the unknowns of folks that we rarely think about, and definitely the students and the children of West Virginia.
Yeah. Yeah. I took a self-care day yesterday, and I've been really bad at not taking self-care days. So I was proud of myself. Only made 2 Facebook posts the whole day, which was big for me. But yeah. So so we're gonna talk a little bit about that, and particularly about education, because you two are both parents. I'm a parent. A lot of changes have gone on in the last month now. It's been, I guess, the 13th of March was when they officially closed schools, and you two have had public. Yeah, I know. But you two have children that, you all were kind of, for different reasons, were kind of homeschooling them before that. And I'm wondering, you guys kind of have a head start, and wondering what's changed in your house with education for you all, and maybe, what you have seen or watched over the last few weeks, and what's one thing that you've seen that public education is really kind of what teachers have stepped up and done that you're impressed by, and tips that you might have as parents where you've kind of done your own homeschool education. I know Anna's child's going back into public education, but yeah, I'm just curious. I guess that's my first question. How have things changed?
So, go ahead, Anna.
Go ahead, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I guess for us, like, Landon has been sick since January. Well, sick, so that it affected his daily life. So he's basically been mostly home since January anyway. So he kind of already was over it by the time this started for everyone else. And so that's been challenging. So he was already sort of semi in quarantine since the beginning of January, and it's been a long time. It put my life on hold. Not that it's all about me, but it put my life on hold. It put his life on hold. It affected the rest of the family. But now that my youngest is home and she's out of elementary or in elementary school, it's been challenging. One of the things that I personally have struggled with is the anxiety and depression for myself through the situation that's going on. And I had not anticipated, even it affected me with Landon. And then more so when Ruby came home, I had not anticipated the energy it would take to keep their energy up, keep them interested in learning, keep them interested in having a schedule, keep them interested in trying to find ways to continue living a normal life when, they're even, looking at me and sometimes saying, what's the point? And I really don't have an answer except to say someday things will be back to normal. And we don't want it to be too big of a shock. So, and I have to talk myself into that a lot of the days sometimes too. Sometimes just getting to hang out with them is what gets me through the day. And I'm sure that a lot of parents can say the same. Yes, it's challenging. Yes, it can be frustrating. But it's mostly a good thing, mostly a positive thing, mostly a grateful thing as far as them being home. And we've had our experience, especially Ruby's teacher. She's in 4th grade, and her teacher contacts us every day through their app, and she tries to be engaging. She has Zoom meetings a few times a week with the kids, which is amazing. Ruby's sort of an introvert, and she gets very nervous, so she has yet to actually be on a Zoom meeting. And that was another thing I hadn't anticipated, was she was always very shy. And just this year, she was really coming out of her shell, and she's reverted the last few weeks. I hadn't anticipated that at all, but she doesn't show the enthusiasm about being part of the world that she did before. Nothing to worry about, just something we'll have to work on and get back into. I think a lot of people will, getting back into being around people and being in your everyday life.
So for us, it's a little bit different, as Devin has been homeschooled for the past 2 years after I won the election on a bet. You can come to work with mom. And that was an adjustment in the first session. But from how we homeschooled before till now, it is so much of a challenge. Where he was communicating with his friends that was still in public education or private education, it was like his social calendar just like changed, right? And so the conversations for young people change also, because it wasn't, so what did you do at school today? Or what did you learn today? Or, when is the next sporting event? Or, when is the next band performance? It was, I don't even know what to ask, because I don't know if that person has food in their home. So I don't want to say, what did you eat for breakfast? And so it just, my son is regressing also. I'm so excited because we are on waiver now that he can do his therapy through telemedicine, through telehealth. And so that's a plus, because that's what he needs in order to keep progressing. He needs his occupational therapy. He needs his physical therapy. And we socialize through events or calendar things that mom had to go to. He is my right-hand person. He is my photographer. He is my social media person. He's my co-pilot. And learning for us was different, because now, because his friends are home, it's like, well, they don't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to take their first class. Well, they don't have to make a meal with their family to count as math, because I'm measuring things. And so I get that it's like I'm living through those teenage years again. And so it's the makeup that every home is going to be different, right? And I think that's the hardest part because I'm blessed to work close to home and in home with him because he is on waiver. But it's also a challenge for those parents who are essential workers who may have allowed their kids to go stay with grandma and grandpa through this period to keep them safe. And so, what do you do? Like, how is grandma and grandpa keeping up with their school assignments? And I see now we're at a plateau with the kids to where not every child learns through online schooling.
Right.
That's a challenge and it's stressful. And
Yes.
I just hope that each and every one of our educators are allowing for these children to have their mental health not come down because we need to acknowledge what's going on. But I don't know if the counselors are calling and checking on the kids. I don't know if they're sending meditation or yoga or breathing exercises through whatever they're doing to give these kids their assignments. But I hope so. I hope that we're still engaging them in physical activities by running in place, maybe in the home, but running in place in an older person's home can cause for them to have some anxieties.
Yeah.
And so it's a challenge for all. Don't think that homeschool parents are having this any easier than
Right.
anyone else because we are very dedicated to public education in our home.
I've heard that a lot from parents that are homeschooling or were homeschooling before, is that they are truly struggling now. It's a lot of those things you mentioned. So it's interesting. One of the things where I deal with like food access with children, and to see that every county is doing a different thing, and sometimes even though USDA says feed homeschool children, feed private school children, feed them all, they're not doing that, and that hurts my heart. So I feel for those homeschools. They have the parents, we're the same parents, whether we're public school parents or homeschool parents or private school parents. So some of us are losing jobs, and it doesn't matter what schools we go to. So those are some of the things that, I've heard, as far as struggles, the educational tools that aren't, equal, certainly have been an issue. It's all of those things that us three, we know are happening 365 days out of the year. But this amplifies it. And, my hope is that it amplifies it so much that it does bring change. I'm always hoping for that. And I think this is a time for teachers and parents to come together. I'm hopeful for that because they are communicating more with each other because of Zoom, because of the kids being at home. So what an opportunity this is to bring them together, to work on things like that. So, yeah. I'm wondering, so do you feel like the local school system or even the state school system, could they have been more prepared for something like this? I mean, how do you feel about that? That's probably a loaded question. But I know how I feel, and I'm not going to talk about how I feel. I want to hear from you all, what your thoughts are on that. Do you feel like we were, prepared a little bit or not at all? And what can we do in the future to be more prepared?
So I'm going to take this from a legislative point of view. I think that now that we have experienced this, something needs to be set in code.
Yeah.
I also feel that we acted very promptly once we were given the okay that the kids were not going to go back to school. We took those baby steps, but I still feel that we did not have all the persons that should have been at the round table to make that decision and to see how the flow of which each county was going to entail. We are 55 strong. but each and every one of our counties vary. And I think that's where the fail was. I think that legislators should have went back in for a special session right at the beginning, because we keep saying that the experts are making the decisions, and I respect that. But my experts is the voters of District 51 and of West Virginia. And it's good when you put something on a piece of paper, but you need action to follow through. Words without works is a waste.
Yeah.
Our education system and our students, whether they are in public, private, or at home, are not a waste.
Right.
When you say that you're not doing any state testing, well, where does that leave the juniors, the seniors? Where does that leave the homeschool students who depend on that test in 3rd, 5th, 8th, and 11th grade? Where does that leave that parent who has to submit things to workman's comp because one of their children or their children are receiving survivor's benefits? See, we can't go at this with a cookie cutter approach, and that's exactly what we did. And for me, that is disrespectful. For me, that is disheartening. For me, you built more of a disparity than you did with anything else, because you did not consider, you did not bring the special ed department who takes care of homeschool students. You did not bring, how is a parent going to follow an IEP?
Right.
Tell me. And we don't even have
Right.
things in place for that parent to even continue this child's speech therapy, occupational therapy, or physical therapy outside of school. How is
Right.
school, how do you know that these folks have a computer, iPad, or a phone that can do a Zoom meeting? So you're assuming too much, West Virginia, and you're not doing your job. And I'm hot, I'm heated, I'm pissed.
I'm with you, fist bump.
So how did you take it away?
Yeah.
I feel me revving up. This
I
shirt
do
was given
too.
to me, and I stand by this. I'll let you take it away, Anna.
I think for me personally, you know, my what's closest to my heart. Well, first of all, I like consistency. I have obsessive compulsive disorder. I like thinking. And of course, hindsight is 2020. I think that mostly, first of all, teachers are working constantly to try to wing this, you know, and unprecedented is a word I hate now. You hear it 24 hours a day, but it's completely true. And I think that the teachers are trying to teach it. I can't even imagine if I was a teacher who, like I remember I had a teacher named Mr. Hunley, and I don't know, some watchers may know who I'm talking about, a history teacher, and he would dress up and he would do lectures and he would kind of play pretend historical events. For someone like that, who is a great teacher with his own style, to try to fit an online education is not them. It's not for, you know, it's very difficult for many of them. And I can't even imagine what that part of it's like. But I think the most concerning thing for me through the whole thing, it really hasn't even really been from my children. You know, my children are smart. My children are supported. They come from a loving home. And so I think in the end, they'll be fine. But the closest thing to my heart with schools, and I've talked about this, anyone who knows me has heard me talk about this constantly, is the abuse and neglect of West Virginia. People don't want to talk about it. Yes, West Virginia is almost heaven, but not for everybody. For many children. I myself grew up in a home that was not as safe as school. And I feel every day this pressure, and you know, I'm sure everyone does, this pressure of you know, I know what it's like in these four walls, but what is it like next door? What is it like down the street? And that's my most concern like today, Landon got a message from the middle school, and I assume, I haven't asked around, but I assume this is a mass message saying if, I'm paraphrasing here, in general, it was to say, if we haven't made contact with you, we'll be coming to your house, or we'll, so please make contact with us. And that hurts me. Thinking of, they had to put this message out because these children aren't making contact. Why aren't these children making contact? What kind of support are they getting at home? And don't get me wrong, parents are busy. Parents are, I let my child do his own education. I don't check up on his Schoology every day. So a lot of that can be part of it as well. But there are many children in West Virginia and many children in Cabell County who are dealing with parents who just don't care. They aren't there. They aren't supportive. They have been neglectful. They are being abusive. One of the reports are saying that they anticipate child abuse instances going up. Of course, because parents are stressed, parents are home, and I understand what that's like. But that's my most terrifying, is that school has become the where the children go to find normalcy. It's where they get checked up on. Teachers are looking at children to make sure they don't look physically harmed. They're talking to children to make sure that the children are feeling comfortable in their speaking and in their socialization. Lots of things that teachers didn't sign up to do. But that's what the school is. So, and Jenny, you know better than anybody that schools are responsible to make sure children are being fed at least once or twice a day. So my concern is, and we won't know until it's over, what kind of response there was, what kind of authority they really have, what kind of contact it really is meaningful. Meaningful contact, are they, it doesn't have to be teachers, it can be counselors, it can be social workers. But what is considered meaningful? Do they hear their voice over the phone? Do they see their face? Are they checking out the living conditions, or whether or not they've been fed? Are they checking to see if they're coming to get the food, if they know they're having food insecurity? Those are the things that I'm most concerned with. It's not necessarily what they're missing out on in the classroom. I know teachers, I have teacher friends that are going to be all over me about this. Education is important, but primarily for me, it's their safety. And that's what I lose sleep over it. You do what you can, but what can you do? Was that an answer to the question? That's what's on my mind. So that's what I'm going to talk about.
That was an excellent response. Yes. Yeah, and that goes back to what's amplified because of the crisis, but what do we do about it? Right now, because we missed opportunities, as Delegate Walker was saying, to try to put something in code and so on, and we didn't have a crisis plan in place. Now we're just left with kind of plugging the holes of this ship and trying to take care of people, neighbors, or whatever best we can. But what is that going to look like? Because now the schools were so full of kids that we already saw that had such trauma in their lives, and now it's just going to grow and almost create a new category of trauma as well. So I can only imagine moving forward what that's going to look like for public schools, especially. But so, I mean, you all hear me preach about local school improvement councils, and I kind of look at that as hopefully being a tool in the future. Nobody's really, you've heard the state board and people talk, we the data that comes out is not really the most accurate data on, how many homeless children we have, how many, even foster children, whatever. So I think that's a start, is creating that data, the data from just each school community, not so much on a state level, but creating it in the community to gather that and figure out a plan moving forward. So that's, again, one of my hopes is that, LSICs are supposed to work on a crisis plan, and we know that they didn't, and they, for whatever reason, I don't think most people knew that was in there, because that piece of that paper, Danielle, that means nothing, is not even in the LSIC policy. It's in another policy located somewhere else. So how would you even know it exists? So yeah, something to look at and try to convince, people to, do something. So I guess one of the things I'm curious about is, I know, do you feel like after, we've seen things have been celebrated a lot through the crisis. We know that there's all these inequities when it comes to food access, education tools that are amplified. Do you feel like that after this, that there are people, well, you've already alluded to that, Danielle, that we could do something in code, and what would that look like in code for legislation moving forward? Like, how would we create such a plan? So not only taking care of kids in the future in a crisis, God forbid something else happen, but just on a daily basis, what would be something that maybe you have in your head that would help with the situations like Anna mentioned, or food access, or education tools in general? Yeah.
So my passion is affordable, accessible housing.
Yeah.
We failed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not even just with folks experiencing homelessness, but unsheltered folks. People don't even know what that means. Someone who just kind of couch surfs, right? Someone who lives with a family member for a certain amount of time, and then they may go to a different family member. And when we think of these people, we think of them as being 18 or over.
Right.
How about some of them are not even over 8 years young? I hope in this time that we can break the barriers that we have of what is someone who is facing food insecurity, a SNAP recipient, someone who receives TANF benefits. Homeschool parents are not lazy. We appreciate our counselors and our educators and our cafeteria workers and administrators. We understand government, and that it is not a bottom up approach, it's always the top going down. And when you push things down, that pressure always stops at the people at the bottom. Where do you want them to go if they're already down? And you keep just putting pressure day in and day out. So it would start with me, even though I'm not on the education committee. I think a study needs to be done in the education committee, the health committee, prevention and treatment of substance abuse. I think it needs to be a judiciary. I think every committee and subcommittee we have in the state, this should be the first study. And it should not be complete until we have a plan set for 2021, whether I'm there or not. And I think that would be the responsible thing for this state to do.
Yeah.
Now we keep putting pressure on our leader, which is the Governor Jim Justice. And he keeps telling us that he's reverting back to the experts. Well, let me introduce you to the expert of the LSIC. That's Jenny Anderson. Let me introduce you to an expert of a task force for homelessness. In Mon County, that's my Laura Jones, my Jeanette Lewis, and my Danielle Ludwig. You have to bring in people who work with this each and every day, not the secretaries, not the commissioners,
Right.
not those folks. That's not the folks that I need
Right.
in this study. I'm sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
I don't need people with a title
Yeah.
with weighted privilege. I need the people who have been on the forefront and on the ground that you kept putting pressure on. I want to speak to that farmer who doesn't know if their bills are going to get paid, but they are also donating to the food banks. See, I appreciate the National Guard put in the food boxes, but I also appreciate that farmer who's donating their produce. These are the things that we are in oversight with. Now, I'm not sure what that's going to look like in code, but I know one damn thing it needs to get in there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Yeah. That, I mean, that is, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it seems obvious, and it's so sad that you have. It's sad. It's just sad. I don't know what else to say. That's all the last couple of years have been. These are obvious things. These are obvious things that people like us have been talking about for years. People that have lived in it and know about it and can tell you who should be talking, who should be involved. And it's almost like being patted on the head and then sent away. It's incredibly frustrating. And it's frustrating to think about the things that maybe could have been simpler, easier this time with what's going on, had everything, Danielle, that you just said come to pass before all the times that people like you and other people before you have said, we need this, we need these things, we need these people to put these things in place. It's frustrating. It's overwhelming. I wish I was more positive. Danielle brings everybody up, and I'm just here to smash everybody back.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's, the bottom line is those things she talks about are root causes. And that's something nobody looks at. Nobody looks at, when I think most of the time when people that, are in those positions there, we won't name names, but what we've seen over the last couple of years, they don't necessarily think of the people, obviously, that it's affecting. And I guess I'm wondering too, regarding public schools and all of these things, like, Department of Ed, I give them kudos for doing such a great job on their end, getting waivers and working with the USDA and National Guards and getting food, there for schools. I'm not so happy with the 55 individual counties per se, how some of them have done. But I guess because those things are getting pointed out, and not to sound like too negative, but how we have charter schools coming, we know that this is not going to stop that. And how do you all see that as maybe a tool that some of these legislators that have brought things like that into our state, how will they use that against public schools in the future? Because my mind spins thinking about what they could do. I don't want to go there and think about it, but I am curious what your thoughts are on that.
And I'll let you go first.
Gosh, it could be anything. It really, there could be, I would like to think, as far as charter school goes, I'm still holding out for the fact, for maybe it not happening. I'm going to pretend that it's not going to happen. But if it were to happen, frankly, I don't know about using it in maybe a competitive way or maybe against public schooling. What bothers me is, and I think, Jenny, you probably think along the same lines or probably thought it before me. I know that their guidelines and as far as how they feed the kids in general and what they're responsible for is not the same as the responsibility that public schools have taken over. It's not in code that they have to provide food pantries and clothing pantries and other services outside of what they what a school would normally do. But imagine, if you will, that we had a charter school for every 2 public schools, same classroom sizes, same grades, K through pre-K through 5th, and you would have 1 for every 2, let's say. What kind of disastrous food inequality would have been happening then? And that actually would be a great thing. I would like to research, and I haven't, because I've been stewing in my own self-pity, but I would like to know what the response has been as far as charter versus public school for this quarantine. I can imagine what I imagine's happened, and because this is what they talked about last year and the year before, was that the public schools would be taking over the feeding of children who were insecure, and they would, basically be it would look a lot like it looks now, with less money, way less money coming in to do those things. The guidelines for what they would be serving would be much different. I want to say disastrous. I can't be more specific. I'm not in a very positive place, but it would be not good. It'd be not good. If you think it's been difficult now with the inconsistency, which I think everyone can agree, that's been the frustrating part for parents and for educators and for those school personnel. It's the inconsistency between the counties. Imagine the inconsistencies between schools within the counties. 2 different systems. It would have been a circus, and it would be a circus had this happen again. And we do need to prepare. We talk about things going back to normal and what we're going to do afterwards to change things. Hopefully, we all have very short memories, but we do need to prepare. This, now that we know this can happen, and they've talked about the second wave, however many waves it's going to happen, however many diseases come down the pike, we do know now that this is something that needs to be in place. Charter school is just going to muck it up. So I hope everyone keeps that in mind moving forward in the future, people that are in a place to make decisions. Sadly, it's not going to be legislators, like Danielle. It's going to be people who maybe are appointed, people who are, have, nepotism, seniority, things, people who maybe aren't thinking the same way as far as what the future could bring. But I do hope that moving forward, that when and if charter schools come into play in West Virginia in a significant way, they will keep in mind the lack of food security for our children. The numbers, I think, when this all calms down and we start collecting data and we all start oohing and ahhing over the ups and downs of the numbers, I think people are going to be shocked by the responsibility for feeding that our public schools have taken on with this. And I hope that they remember that when they do design charter schools for us.
My favorite.
They've got a model, don't they, Danielle?
Charter school.
They've got a model, and it was in New Orleans. Talking about how it doesn't work. After a disaster is what I'm talking about. Is charter schools swept right in.
Who, when you have to have that 10-second countdown? What do you think was going to happen with these students that was going to go to charter schools? What do you think that administration would have done? They would have started kicking these kids out way before we got to the point that we are now. Let's keep it real. And I'm about keeping it real. And if I say the students, they would have kicked those kids out of the school We would have been scrambling to try to place them in public education, trying to test them in the midst of all of this. And think how many would have been left behind, falling through the cracks.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Really? Because you could have had somebody living in one district, but going to a charter school way on the other side of town. How are we going to get food to those children?
Right. Well, and then what scares me about that policy is it could be like you have a county that is on the border of 2 other counties. You could have one charter school serving 3 counties.
That's right.
It depends on how they set it up. So which counts as one of those 3 charter schools?
Yes.
So I just, it frightens me. I know a lot of people aren't real scared about it, but it does frighten me. Especially your county has already,
Not happy about that either. I'm going to be very vocal about that. I do not support a chartered school. I don't care what you put in the front of it. Charter is charter. Whether you add public or not, it's still a charter school. It's not wanted. It's not needed. And I will never support it. If I say it once, I can say it twice. And I will stand on the lines with the educators saying that we don't want it. And you could bring it somewhere else. And so how would those educators in the charter school get themselves together to get these children all the material that they would have needed for this quarantine?
Right.
Please,
they wouldn't.
Who are, where's their
There's absolutely.
Are we back to the have and the have-nots?
Yeah. Right.
We fought this for so long, West Virginia.
Yeah.
Do you not remember your Mother Jones? So you gonna let these folks come back in a chartered school? Yeah. Don't let the history repeat itself for your legacies and their future legacies. Stand up and speak out. Speaking out is not calling out. Speaking out is calling in. So as you're home and you're in your self-pity, pick up the phone and call your superintendents. Go ahead and go into those Zoom meetings so you can see what's going on in the Board of Education meetings. Zoom in for the city council meetings. Zoom in for the county commission meetings. Because they can't do anything without you. And if you don't like what they're doing, you hold their pink slip. On what, June 9th? Use it or lose it. It's up to you. Don't get on here Facebook worrying on the keyboard and you don't want to pick up the phone and make the call. I can do my job.
Right.
But I need you to do your job.
Right.
I need each and every one of you to wake up. If you suspect a child being abused, call the 800 number. If you don't see, because you home, if you don't see the state car coming out, call them again. Call me. I'll make sure I send out the email and I make the call. 304-702-0647 is public. And I give it out to each and every one of you. You don't have no food? Don't you stay home with your pride and not eat? Don't you let those children go hungry? And hunger is more than having an empty stomach. It's not being able to concentrate. It's not being able to pick up things, to see things, to hear things, and to experience things. So we all have a commitment and a responsibility. Too many. So please, 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 y'all, keep using your voice. Use your voice. That's all I have to say. Y'all got me heated on this. This is like the best one I've ever done.
That was a heck of a call to arms. I love it. I'm going to go behind that and tell everybody, please, please, please fill out the census. form, my little PSA, because all of these things we're talking about tonight.
Do what? Our response here has been embarrassing. I mean, what else is there to say? It's embarrassing. If you can't fill out the census, they send it to you. Or you can go get it on the internet. Like, I could do it right now. I'm talking to you. And yet we haven't done it, which is indicative of why people back to charter school, why nobody, wants to get involved. They just don't, Danielle says it way better, but you have to get up. You have to do it. You have to get involved. You have to get involved. You have to. Otherwise,
just do that one little thing, Yeah. But I mean, I will say there are a lot of people that aren't getting those forms. That they're not getting them delivered. Boone County is not getting forms in their mailbox, so they rely, and then they may not have internet either. So we have census workers out there trying to get to them, but now their jobs have been put on hold. So it's just a mess of any time for this to be a census count year. Yeah. It's crazy. So, but if you can watch us tonight, you can fill out your census. That's all I'm saying. So please do. It takes 5-10 minutes, because that is all tied to public school funding and housing and college and just all kinds of things that our state gets. And we want to make sure that, we get every dollar that our state needs, or we need much more than that, but it helps. Yeah, I wanted to, when you were talking about that, just hit me. Census.
It's always a good time to remind people.
I was going to ask something else, and now I'm like, go ahead.
No, I said it's always a good time to remind people about the census.
So I posted something last about the census, and it really touched me when someone responded. Everyone is so overwhelmed right now at this time. True. People are trying to fill out their unemployment, their TANF, their food stamps, Medicaid, whatever, trying to get money from their 401k, payroll protection plans. People are disgusted in filling out things, and it's overwhelming. And so I didn't think about it at the time, but someone said if not for her husband in filling it out, she had no interest in it. Yeah. And you know what? West Virginia and America, that should sit very, very heavy on you. People are not seeing this hope of what the census is doing because they're fighting with unemployment and they're fighting with DHHR. And now you want me to be counted for you to get funds, and it's taking me over 30 days to get mine? Yeah. I don't trust you. I don't believe you. You only want my numbers when it's beneficial to you.
Right.
And I never get those benefits. And so that sat on my heart all day long. I've been trying to think about how am I gonna send out. I understand. I've been there. After you've been told no so much, you need a breather. You got to step back away from it. You need a breather. And we're going to have to figure out another way to get it done. I don't know if we can get an extension. That was something. Can we get an extension pushback? Because, I mean, come on. I've only lived here 10 years, but y'all know how we are as mountaineers. We don't trust too many things. Right. And so what happens in those areas where there is no broadband?
Right.
And you asking people to call on the phone, guess whose phone is off? Right. They haven't had income in 3 weeks. You can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. And you're not even giving these folks lemons to make lemonade. Yeah. So we got to be mindful of our words. Just my 2 cents.
Well, thank you. No, that was a really good perspective to hear. It really was. Yeah, because I mean, that's just working on the food end. It's the same thing. It's like, people are even to get people to call 211 is a struggle, because they connect it with all the red tape they've had to deal with forever. And they don't want to do. And then when they call once and the phone's busy, or you know what I mean? It's triggering.
Yeah,
it really is.
5 times. And the phone's busy. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, these are our people, and how do we help them moving forward out of this? That's what keeps me up at night, is that heaviness, Yeah.
Something I noticed,
I'm trying
on it already, but and I had only noticed it the last couple of days, but I study, not study, that sounds geeky. But I notice Facebook pattern, or social media pattern, how many likes, how many posts during a day, what kind of viewing is it getting, what kind of engagement is it getting, and just the sheer amount of political disengagement, which the census, whether or not considered political, education is now political. People don't want to hear. They don't want to hear from somebody who's running for office. Virtually, they get on Facebook to disengage and to escape, and now it's in their face. So they just plain old don't do Facebook anymore. They don't want to be involved with those things. How can we, that is the question. How do we help people right now who are backing away from even the virtual interaction of humanity right now? This is right now all we have, sadly and coldly. This is what we have to reach each other and to message to each other about things that are vitally important, things that when this is all over and everything's back to normal, we will regret having not kept our eye on. How do we, reach out to each other in an understanding way? I am just where Danielle just described. I put off the census because I just don't think it helps anymore, although I've done it. But it's hard to encourage other people to do it. Especially now when you watch things like with the Postal Service, what's it say for a state who is supposed to be dependent on federal funding in a federation that is now against the funding? How do we, and I'm literally asking, how do we help each other in this world now? Help me help you. How are we supposed to reach each other? It's a challenge.
Do we have any questions?
It goes back to plugging holes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't. Sarah, do we have any questions? There's them.
You're on mute. There we go. So we don't have any questions yet. We've had a lot of engagement, and I think this is a good start to some ongoing dialogue in the future. Maybe setting a series of events like this so that we can alert people when it's going to happen and getting more people engaged. I know this was kind of, let's get this together and make this happen. And but yeah, and I think I think both of you said something very interesting, which is, people are overwhelmed right now. People are tired. They're mistrustful. And they don't know who to believe at this point. Right. But I think by having these types of conversations, and I'm going to speak personally here, this is just my personal opinion. Even though we are virtual, you still need to be part of this conversation. I'm angry. I was so angry when I came back to West Virginia and I saw what was going on. Mm-hmm. But I still got to be at the table if I want it to change. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so we need everybody. I mean, there's only so many legislators and there's a whole lot of us. Mm-hmm. So we need, so yeah, no questions at this point other than that one, should it be more concerted statewide effort versus county to county effort, which I threw out there. So yeah, I think we can solicit more questions for our next one and go from there. And I'm just moderating, so that would just be my suggestion.
It's a good one.
Thank you. Jenna, do you have any last words?
Yeah. I want to end on a high note. I get, and Sarah kind of alluded to it. It's a good conversation start piece, I think, talking about public education in particular, because I'm one, and Center for Budget and Policy say too, it's like our public school system sets that tone for our whole state, our economy and how attracted people are to us. And just, aside from some of the things we talked about, just looking at strategies and ways to educate, students out of the box might be a next conversation as far as, what's it going to look like? We obviously need more CTE jobs or schooling in the state and digital. At this point, maybe this is an opportunity to bring in some digital economic development of some sort. And I don't want to say we don't want education to go all digital or anything like that, but maybe some of the lessons that we're learning as we go along and we improve and tweak things the teachers have and parents, maybe this is a good, solid, positive opportunity to make some changes in our education system. So, I hope that's kind of a high note to end on. But do you all have anything else to add?
Well, I do, always.
I know you do.
Mountaineers, you are always free. We are West Virginia strong. And we are strong, West Virginia. The joy will come in the morning. We may not know what morning that is, but it's coming. Special thank you for all the organizers, for all the food distributors, for the teachers, for the personnel, to the administrators. Thank you for taking care of the students of West Virginia and their families. Thank you to the educator that's going above and beyond. I see you when you come in my neighborhood. I thank you when you come through the cul-de-sac. You blow the horn and you wave so your students can see you. Even though we may not be face to face and it may not be one-on-one, it takes a special person to work in any capacity in the school system.
That's definitely true.
For my parents, you now see what little Johnny is doing the hours that he's at school. I appreciate you being patient with your own children, because not all of us at every moment in time knows just how to get through to our children. Be patient. Walk away from that child before you yell or get annoyed or even pick up your hand. Call 211 if you're hurting. Please, there's people out there to help. Don't let your pride turn into privilege. That's going to take away your power. One love, Delegate Danielle Walker.
Thank you. Thank you. What an ending. Yeah, well, thank you all for joining me for the first of, I hope, many education talks. I'd love to have you all back on and do part 2 and talk about some other things. So much to talk about. But I think we were off to a good start. And thank you. It's very special. Thank you to Sarah McDowell over here. Hey, Sarah. She actually came on at last minute to help this not so tech girl out when I was having difficulty. So I appreciate you very much. Thank you. And hopefully we can talk her into coming back.
I'm happy to help anytime that I can help facilitate conversations like this that bring West Virginians all together so that we can have these conversations virtually, however it happens. I'm there. So for all of those out there, the delegates who are, in office, for those of you that are running for office, it is really important. And for every West Virginian watching, talk to your friends, talk to your family, invite them to the next one, invite them to be at the, to have a voice at the conversation and to be heard. I can't really top what Delegate Walker said, so I'm not even going to try, but I'm happy to help anytime.
Well, I wanted to remind everybody on Thursday, that's our next Ed Talk, and we will have an educator, a teacher, a friend of mine, Mary Beth Freeman from Cabell County, and her daughter, and they're going to talk about how life has changed for them and challenge them, and how some of the tips and things that they've worked, have come up with on their own. Jillian has something really clever she's doing at home to keep her on track with her schoolwork. She's in high school. Jillian is Mary Beth's daughter. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I will see you all Thursday. And I hope you all had a nice time chatting. So thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.